Imani Rhodes stared at the layoff notice in her hand. After 3 years of answering phones, filing insurance claims, and comforting nervous patients at Westside Medical Center, she was being let go due to budget cuts. She'd heard that phrase too many times in her 27 years. "I'm really sorry, Imani," Dr. Garcia said, not quite meeting her eyes. "You've been wonderful. I'll write you an excellent recommendation." Imani forced a smile. "Thank you. I understand." But she didn't understand. Not really. Why was it always her? Always the last hired, first fired, always the one who got the "it's not you, it's me" speech from boyfriends who couldn't commit. Always the one whose car broke down on the way to important interviews. 2 weeks later, Imani sat cross-legged on her small apartment floor surrounded by job listings while her cousin Nia paced around her living room. "Girl, you can't just hide in this apartment forever," Nia said, picking up Imani's untouched cup of tea. "When was the last time you even went outside? And don't say, to check the mail," Imani sighed. "I'm not hiding. I'm being practical. I need a job before I start spending money on anything." "What you need is to remember there's a whole world out there," Nia countered. "Look, I know things have been rough. That jerk Marcus ghosting you after 6 months. 7 months, Imani corrected. 7 months then, and now the job, but honey, you can't just shut down." Imani looked up at her cousin, always so put together in her designer clothes and perfect makeup. Nia had never been laid off or left without explanation. She'd never had to choose between paying rent or keeping the lights on. "I'm fine," Imani insisted. "I just need to focus on finding work." Nia sat down beside her, gently taking the job listings from her hands. "What you need is a night out, something to remind you that life isn't just about survival." "Nice. My friend Jason works with this guy. Super nice, stable job, no drama. He's been asking about you since I showed him your picture at the Christmas party," Imani groaned. "The last guy you set me up with talked about his ex the entire night. This one's different. His name is Curtis Hayes. He's sweet, respectful, has his own place, just one dinner. What's the worst that could happen?" Imani wanted to say no. Every fiber in her body wanted to retreat, to protect the little pieces of her heart that hadn't already been chipped away. But something in Nia's hopeful expression made her pause. "Fine," she finally said. "One dinner. But if he mentions his mother more than 3 times, I'm leaving," Nia squealed with delight. "Saturday night, I'll text you the details. Wear that burgundy dress we found at the thrift store. You look like $1,000,000 in it." Saturday evening arrived too quickly. Imani stood in front of her bathroom mirror, trying to steady her hands enough to apply mascara. The burgundy dress fit perfectly, hugging her curves before flowing out at the knees. It was the nicest thing she owned, even if she'd found it second-hand. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nia. "Good luck tonight. Restaurant is Bellini's downtown. 7:30. Reservation under C. Hayes. He'll be waiting." Imani took a deep breath. "Just dinner," she told her reflection. "Just a few hours, and then you can come home and watch baking shows in your pajamas." The Uber dropped her off in front of Bellini's at 7:40. She was late. The driver had taken a wrong turn, and she hated making bad first impressions. The restaurant was far fancier than she'd expected, with crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. She clutched her small purse tighter, suddenly aware of the carefully concealed scuff on her only pair of heels. "Can I help you?" the hostess asked with a practiced smile. "Yes, I'm here for a reservation." "Under C. Hayes?" The hostess checked her list. "Ah, yes, your party is already seated, right this way." Imani followed her through the dining room, past tables of well-dressed couples and business associates. She felt eyes on her, imagining judgments about her thrift store dress and drugstore makeup. The hostess led her toward the back of the restaurant, where a man sat alone at a corner table. He was looking down at his watch, a glass of red wine, untouched in front of him. Even seated, she could tell he was tall, with broad shoulders under his navy suit. His skin was a warm brown, and his closely cropped hair framed a face that belonged on magazine covers. This couldn't be her date. This man was far too everything, but the hostess gestured to the table. "Here you are, enjoy your meal." The man looked up, and Imani felt something shift in the air between them. His eyes, deep brown with flecks of amber, widened slightly. He stood immediately, revealing his full height. "I'm so sorry I'm late," Imani said, finding her voice. "My driver took a wrong turn." The man smiled, and something warm bloomed in Imani's chest. "It's absolutely fine. I'm just glad you made it." His voice was low and smooth, with a gentleness that didn't match his impressive stature. He pulled out her chair, and Imani sat down, trying to remember the last time anyone had done that for her. "I'm Imani," she said, extending her hand across the table. He took it, his touch lingering a moment longer than necessary. "Caleb," he replied. "It's wonderful to meet you, Imani." The waiter appeared almost immediately, offering water and bread, and reciting specials that seemed to be in a different language. "Would you like some wine?" Caleb asked. "They have an excellent selection." Imani hesitated. "Maybe just a glass of whatever you're having." "The Cabernet is very good," he said, then turned to the waiter. "Another glass, please." When the waiter left, an awkward silence fell. Imani scrambled for something to say, something that wouldn't reveal how out of place she felt in this restaurant, with this impossibly handsome man. "So," she began, "Nia tells me you work with her friend Jason." A flicker of confusion crossed Caleb's face, but it disappeared so quickly Imani wondered if she'd imagined it. "Actually," he said carefully, "I'm not familiar with either of those names." Now it was Imani's turn to be confused. "Wait, you're not Curtis?" Caleb's smile returned, gentle and amused. "No, I'm Caleb. Caleb Hayes." Imani felt her stomach drop. "Caleb Hayes, not Curtis Hayes?" "I'm afraid not. Oh my God." Imani covered her face with her hands. "I'm at the wrong table. The hostess must have misunderstood. I am so sorry." She started to stand, mortification burning through her veins, but Caleb reached across the table, his fingers brushing against her wrist. "Please," he said softly, "don't go." Imani froze, caught between embarrassment and the unexpected warmth of his touch. "This is so embarrassing," she said. "I should find my actual date." "Or," Caleb suggested, his voice low, "you could stay. Have dinner with me instead." Imani looked at him, searching for any sign of mockery or pity, but found only sincerity in those amber-flecked eyes. "Why would you want to have dinner with a complete stranger who can't even find the right table?" she asked. Caleb's smile deepened, revealing a small dimple in his right cheek. "Because in the 30 seconds since you sat down, I've been more intrigued than I've been in months, and because I was dreading another lonely dinner." The waiter returned with Imani's wine, and she used the moment to consider Caleb's words. She should leave, find Curtis, her actual blind date, apologize for the mix-up. But something in Caleb's expression, a vulnerability beneath the confidence, made her hesitate. "One glass of wine," she finally said. "And then I should really find my date." Relief washed over Caleb's face. "One glass of wine it is." One glass turned into two. Appetizers appeared. Main courses followed. Imani forgot about finding Curtis, forgot about feeling out of place, forgot about everything except the man sitting across from her. Caleb was nothing like she expected. He spoke softly, listened intently, and asked questions that made her feel like her answers mattered. When she mentioned losing her job, he didn't offer empty platitudes or unsolicited advice. He simply nodded and asked how she was coping. "Some days are better than others," she admitted. "I've been a medical receptionist since college. It's not glamorous, but I liked helping people when they were scared or hurting." "That takes a special kind of strength," Caleb said. "Facing other people's pain day after day." Something in his tone made Imani look closer. "You sound like you know something about that." Caleb twirled the stem of his wineglass between his fingers. "My mother was sick for a long time before she passed. Cancer. I spent a lot of time in hospitals growing up." "I'm sorry," Imani said softly. "It was a long time ago, but I never forgot the receptionists who remembered her name, who asked about her good days." Imani felt a tightness in her chest. "What about your father? Was he there for you both?" A shadow crossed Caleb's face. "My father is a complicated man. He was more concerned with the family business than with family." "That must have been hard." "It taught me what kind of man I didn't want to become," Caleb said simply. As dinner progressed, Imani found herself sharing more than she'd intended, her childhood moving between relatives' homes after her parents' accident, her struggles to put herself through community college, her string of relationships that ended without explanation. "I'm talking too much," she said suddenly, embarrassed by her openness. "Not at all," Caleb assured her. "I like listening to you." "What about you? What do you do when you're not having dinner with women who sit at the wrong table?" Caleb laughed, a warm sound that Imani wanted to hear again. "I work in the family business, hotels primarily." "Like management?" "Something." "Like that," he said vaguely. "But it's not very interesting. I'd rather hear about your passion for mystery novels. You mentioned Agatha Christie?" Imani smiled, sensing his deflection but not pushing. "My grandmother got me hooked. We used to read them together when I stayed with her during summers. Any recommendations for someone who's never read one?" "You've never read an Agatha Christie novel?" Imani gasped in mock horror. "We need to fix that immediately. Start with, 'And Then There Were None.' It's brilliant." "I'll buy it tomorrow," Caleb promised. "Or you could check it out from the library," Imani suggested. "Save yourself some money." Something flickered in Caleb's eyes. Amusement, maybe surprise, but he nodded. "The library, of course." The waiter approached, clearing their dessert plates. "Will there be anything else this evening, Mr. Hayes?" "Just the check, thank you," Caleb replied. Imani reached for her purse. "Let me pay my half." Caleb shook his head. "Please allow me." "It's the least I can do after hijacking your evening." "You didn't hijack anything," Imani said. "I'm the one who sat at the wrong table, remember?" "Best mistake anyone's ever made at my table," Caleb said with that dimpled smile. Only when the check arrived did Imani notice the time on her phone. 9:45. They'd been talking for over 2 hours. She also noticed 3 missed calls and 4 text messages, all from the same unknown number. 35 p.m. "Hi, Imani, it's Curtis. I'm at Bellini's at the bar. Are you running late?" 05 p.m. "Still waiting. Everything okay?" 30 p.m. "I guess you changed your mind. Have a good night." 45 p.m. "For what it's worth, you missed out on a decent guy." Guilt washed over her. "Oh no, my actual date. I completely forgot." Caleb's expression fell slightly. "Right. Curtis." "He waited for almost an hour," Imani said, showing Caleb the texts. "I feel terrible. You could text him back, explain what happened." Imani considered this, then shook her head. "The last message says it all, doesn't it? You missed out on a decent guy." As if he's doing me a favor by being decent. Caleb's lips quirked up. "When you put it that way. Besides," Imani continued, "I had a much better time with you than I would have with anyone Nia set me up with. Her taste in men is questionable at best." "Then I'm glad you found my table instead," Caleb said, his eyes warm. The waiter returned, with Caleb's credit card and a small leather folder. "Thank you for dining with us, Mr. Hayes. As always, it's been our pleasure." As they stood to leave, Imani noticed several staff members watching them with curious expressions. One woman, perhaps the manager, gave Caleb a respectful nod as they passed. Outside, the night air was cool against Imani's skin. The street was still busy with weekend traffic, taxis honking and people laughing as they moved between bars and restaurants. "Can I call you a car?" Caleb asked. "I'll just use the app on my phone," Imani said, already pulling it up. Caleb watched her, a strange expression on his face. "Imani," he said suddenly, "may I see you again?" Imani looked up, surprised by the urgency in his voice. "You want to see me again?" "Very much so." His eyes were intent, almost vulnerable. "I haven't felt like this in years, like I could just talk and be heard, like I could just be myself." Something about his words resonated deep within Imani. How long had it been since someone had really seen her? Not as a convenient girlfriend or reliable employee, but as herself. "I'd like that," she said softly. Relief washed over Caleb's face. "Could I have your number?" They exchanged phones, each entering their contact information. When Caleb handed hers back, their fingers brushed, and Imani felt that same spark she'd experienced when he first smiled at her. "I should warn you," she said. "I'm not very interesting. I don't do fancy restaurants or expensive wines." "I don't care about any of that," Caleb said. "I care about the woman who loves mystery novels and remembers patients' names and makes me laugh without trying. A car pulled up to the curb, Imani's ride. "That's me," she said, suddenly reluctant to leave. Caleb opened the car door for her, then paused. "One more thing," he said. "That dress, it's not just nice. You look beautiful in it." Imani felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Thank you." "Good night, Caleb." "Good night, Imani." As the car pulled away, Imani looked back to see Caleb still standing on the sidewalk watching her go. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt something unfamiliar fluttering in her chest. Hope. The next morning, Imani woke to her, phone buzzing on the nightstand. Expecting Nia demanding details about the date, she was surprised to see Caleb's name on the screen instead. "Good morning. I hope this isn't too forward, but I wanted to thank you again for last night. I just ordered." And then there were none from the bookstore. "Looking forward to discussing it with you." Imani smiled, typing back, "Good morning to you too, not too forward at all. You're in for a treat with that book. Let me know what you think of the ending." She set the phone down, still smiling, and headed to the kitchen to make coffee. As the pot brewed, she thought about the strange turn her evening had taken. Sitting at the wrong table should have been a disaster. Instead, it felt like the first right thing to happen to her in a long time. Her phone buzzed again. Would it be completely inappropriate to ask if you're free for breakfast? There's a place near Baldwin Park that makes incredible blueberry pancakes. Imani hesitated. This was moving fast. Too fast? But the memory of Caleb's smile, the way he'd listened when she spoke, made her fingers type before her brain could overthink it. "Blueberry pancakes are my weakness. What time?" His response came immediately. "I can pick you up in 30 minutes. If that works for you, 30 minutes. Imani looked down at her oversized t-shirt and sleep shorts. "Make it 45 and you've got a deal." 5 minutes it is. "See you soon, Imani." She rushed to the bathroom, heart racing with a mixture of excitement and nerves. What was she doing agreeing to see him again so soon? Nia would say she was being impulsive, but for once, impulsive didn't feel reckless. It felt right. 45 minutes later, a gentle knock sounded at her apartment door. Imani smoothed her simple sundress, took a deep breath and opened it. Caleb stood in the hallway looking impossibly handsome in jeans and a light blue button-down shirt. His smile widened when he saw her, that dimple appearing in his right cheek. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she replied. For a moment they just looked at each other, the connection from the night before still humming between them. "Ready for the best pancakes in the city?" Caleb finally asked. Imani nodded, grabbing her purse. "Lead the way." As they walked to his car, a surprisingly modest sedan, not the luxury vehicle she'd half expected, Imani felt a strange sense of déjà vu, as if they'd done this 100 times before. As if this man she'd just met was somehow already woven into the fabric of her life. It should have scared her. Instead, it felt like coming home. What she didn't know was that across town, in the sleek offices of the Hayes Hotel Group, Caleb's father, Elijah Hayes Thacker, was staring at a text message from his son. "Something's come up. Won't make the board meeting this morning. Sanders can present my report." Elijah's eyes narrowed as he typed back, "This is unacceptable, Caleb. The Anderson merger is too important for you to skip out on a whim." When no response came, Elijah called his assistant. "Find out where my son is," he ordered, "and who he's with." Outside, the sun shone brightly on what promised to be a beautiful day, but dark clouds were gathering on the horizon, unseen by the two people sharing pancakes and laughter in a corner booth of a small breakfast cafe. The weeks following their chance meeting flew by in a blur of pancake breakfasts, late-night phone, calls and walks through quiet parks after sunset. Each day, Imani found herself falling deeper for Caleb Hayes, a man who seemed too good to be true. "You're smiling at your phone again," Nia said, leaning against the doorframe of Imani's tiny kitchen. She'd stopped by unannounced, claiming she needed to check on her cousin after the disastrous blind date. "Is it him, the mysterious wrong-table guy?" Imani quickly set her phone down, but not before Nia caught a glimpse of Caleb's message. "Just thinking about you. Dinner tonight? It's nothing, Imani said, trying and failing to sound casual. Nothing? Nia raised an eyebrow. Girl, you've been floating around for 3 weeks. You haven't even mentioned that you stood up poor Curtis. Imani winced. I didn't stand him up. Not intentionally, I apologized. After ghosting him for 2 hours, Nia pointed out. That's not like you, Imani. So who is this guy who's got you forgetting your manners? Imani hesitated. She hadn't told Nia much about Caleb, just that she'd accidentally met someone else that night. Something made her want to keep him to herself, like a perfect dream that might disappear if spoken about too loudly. His name is Caleb, she finally said. He's nice. Nice? Nia snorted. The way your face lights up when he texts, he better. Be a lot more than nice. What does he do? Where's he from? How did you even end up at his table? Imani sighed, knowing her cousin wouldn't let it go. He works in hotel management. The hostess misunderstood when I asked for the Hayes reservation. Turns out there were 2 that night, Curtis Hayes and Caleb Hayes. Wait, Nia said, suddenly alert. Caleb Hayes, not Caleb Elijah Hayes? Something cold settled in Imani's stomach. I don't know his middle name. Why? Nia was already pulling out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Because Caleb Elijah Hayes III is only the heir to the biggest hotel chain on the East Coast. The Hayes Hotel Group owns like 20 luxury properties. That can't be right, Imani said, shaking her head. My Caleb is normal. He drives a Honda. He gets excited. About pancakes at a diner. Nia turned her phone around, showing Imani a news article with the headline, Hayes Air continues to shun spotlight as company expands. Below was a blurry photo of a tall man in a suit, his face partially turned away from the camera. Is that him? Nia demanded. Imani stared at the image. It was hard to tell. The photo was grainy, taken from a distance, but the height, the broad shoulders, the way he held himself. It could be Caleb. I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe. Girl. Nia's eyes were wide. You might be dating an actual millionaire. Billionaire, even. We're not dating, Imani said automatically, though even to her own ears, the words rang false. We're just getting to know each other. Uh-huh. Nia was scrolling through more. Search results. Says here he's super private, barely any social media presence. The press can't even get a decent photo of him. After his mom died, he disappeared from the society pages. Imani thought about Caleb's quiet voice when he'd mentioned his mother, the sadness that had flashed in his eyes. He told me about his mom cancer. So it is him. Nia looked triumphant. I don't know, Imani repeated more firmly this time. And it doesn't matter. I like him for who he is when we're together, not for his last name or his job. Nia's expression softened. Oh. Honey, I know you do. That's who you are. But if he is that Hayes, you need to be careful. Rich people live in a different world. He's just Caleb to me, Imani said, surprised by the defensiveness in her voice. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Caleb. Is 7 too early? I found. A quiet place I think you'll love? Imani smiled despite herself. I have to get ready. I'm meeting him for dinner. Nia stood, gathering her purse. Just promise me something, cuz. If he is Caleb Hayes of the Hayes Hotels, make sure he's seeing you for you, not as some escape from his regular life. The words followed Imani as she prepared for dinner, selecting a simple dress and her favorite cardigan. What if Nia was right? What if Caleb was just slumming it, finding temporary entertainment in someone so different from his usual world? But then she remembered the way he listened when she spoke, how he'd remembered every detail about her grandmother, how his eyes lit up when she laughed. That couldn't be fake, could it? At precisely 7 p.m., a knock sounded at her door. Caleb stood in the hallway holding a small paper bag. Hi, he said, that now familiar dimple appearing as he smiled. Hi yourself, Imani replied, all her doubts momentarily forgotten at the sight of him. He handed her the bag. I got you something. Inside was a worn paperback copy of Murder on the Orient Express. I finished, and then there were none yesterday, Caleb explained. You were right, it was brilliant. The bookseller recommended this one next. I thought maybe we could read it together. The simple thoughtfulness of the gift made Imani's chest tighten. I'd love that. Caleb's eyes softened. "You look beautiful tonight." Imani glanced down at her plain dress, suddenly aware of how simple it was. "It's nothing special." "I disagree," Caleb said, offering his arm. "Shall we?" The quiet place turned out to be a small family-owned Italian restaurant tucked away on a side street. Unlike Bellini's, it had checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in old wine bottles. The owner greeted them at the door, calling Caleb by name. "You've been here before?" Imani asked as they were seated in a cozy corner booth. "A few times," Caleb admitted. "It's one of the few places where I can just be me." Something in his tone made Imani hesitate. "Caleb, can I ask you something?" He nodded, eyes curious. Do you work for Hayes Hotels or do you own them?" Caleb's expression shifted, a shadow crossing his features. For a long moment he was silent, and Imani feared she'd ruined everything. "Not exactly," he finally said. "My father runs the company. I'm the executive vice president of development. So you are Caleb Hayes, the Caleb Hayes." He sighed, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. "I'm just Caleb. The rest is complicated." "Why didn't you tell me?" Imani asked, trying to keep the hurt from her voice. Caleb reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers. "Because for the first time in years someone was looking at me. Just me. Not my family name, not my bank account. When you sat at my table that night, you had no idea who I was, and it was freeing." Imani wanted to be angry, but the raw honesty in his eyes made it impossible. "I don't care about your money, Caleb." "I know," he said, his smile returning. "That's exactly why I care about you." The word hung between them, weighted with meaning. Care. Not quite love, but something more than friendship, something growing deeper every day. "So," Imani said, deliberately lightening her tone, "do you own a helicopter or something?" Caleb laughed, relief evident in his expression. "No helicopter, though there is a company jet." "Of course there is," Imani said, shaking her head. "Any other secrets I should know about?" His expression turned serious again. "My father. He's difficult, controlling. Since my mother died, he's been obsessed with the company's image." "With my image? Is that why you keep such a low profile?" Caleb nodded. "It's the one battle I've managed to win. He gets my business expertise, but my private life stays private." "And now," Imani asked softly, "am I part of that private life?" Caleb's eyes met hers, intense and unwavering. "I want you to be. More than I've wanted anything in a long time. But I need you to understand what that means. My father, the press, they'll eventually find out about us. And when they do, they'll come after me," Imani finished for him. "I won't let them hurt you," Caleb promised, "but I need you to be sure to know what you're getting into." Imani thought about her simple life, her job search, her quiet apartment. Dating Caleb Hayes meant stepping into a spotlight she'd never asked for. But then she looked at him, this man who read mystery novels because she loved them, who remembered how she took her coffee, who looked at her like she was precious, and found her answer. "I'm sure about you, Caleb. The rest we'll figure out together." His smile was like sunrise breaking through clouds. "Together," he repeated, the word a promise. After dinner, they walked hand in hand through a nearby park, the paths illuminated by old-fashioned lamps. The night was cool but not cold, the stars visible despite the city lights. "Tell me about your family," Caleb said. "You mentioned living with relatives after your parents died." Imani nodded. "Car accident when I was 8. After that, I bounced between my aunt's house and my grandmother's apartment. They did their best, but it wasn't the same," Caleb finished softly. "No," Imani agreed, "it wasn't. My grandmother was wonderful, though. She's the one who got me reading mysteries, who taught me that even when life is hard, you can find the moments of joy." She sounds like an amazing woman. She was. She passed away my senior year of high school. Imani smiled at the memory of her grandmother's tiny kitchen, always smelling of cinnamon and coffee. "She would have liked you." "I hope." "So," Caleb said. He stopped walking, turning to face her. "Imani, there's something I need to tell you." The seriousness in his voice made her stomach tighten. "What is it?" "My father's assistant called today. Apparently, someone at Bellini's mentioned seeing me with a woman they didn't recognize. My father wants to meet you." Imani felt her breath catch. "Already? We've only known each other a few weeks." "I told him no," Caleb said firmly. "I told him my personal life is off limits. But you should know he won't stop. Finding out about you, trying to control this, control us. It's what he does." "What does that mean for us?" Caleb's hands came up to frame her face, gentle and warm against her skin. "It means I'm going to protect you, keep you away from his manipulation, but I need you to know what we're facing." In the soft lamplight, his eyes looked almost gold. Imani felt herself leaning toward him, drawn by something deeper than attraction. "I'm not afraid," she whispered. "You should be," he murmured. "I am." And then he was kissing her, his lips soft against hers, his hands cradling her face like she was something precious, something he was afraid might break. Imani's eyes closed as she leaned into him, her hands finding purchase on his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing beneath her fingers. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the moment you sat at my table." "What took you so long?" Imani teased, her voice unsteady. Caleb smiled, that dimple appearing. "I was afraid you'd realize you were too good for me." Imani laughed softly. "I think you have that backwards." "No," he said, suddenly serious, "I don't." The next morning, Imani woke to the sound of her phone ringing. She fumbled for it, expecting Caleb, but the screen showed Nia's number instead. "Hello?" She answered groggily. "Turn on your TV, channel 8, now." Nia's voice was urgent. "What? Why? Just do it, Imani." Confused, Imani reached for the remote, clicking on the small television in the corner of her bedroom. The local morning news was on, a perky blonde reporter standing outside a familiar restaurant, the Italian place where she and Caleb had dined the night before. "Spotted at Mama Rosa's last night," the reporter was saying. Sources confirmed that the notoriously private Caleb Hayes was dining with an unidentified woman. This marks the first time in nearly 3 years that the Hayes heir has been linked romantically to anyone. The question on everyone's mind: who is the mystery woman who's captured the heart of one of the city's most eligible bachelors? The screen showed a grainy photo taken through the restaurant window, Caleb smiling across the table at her, their hands touching. Imani felt the blood drain from her face. "Oh my God! That's you!" Nia's voice shrieked through the phone. "I knew it was him. You're dating Caleb Hayes." "Nia, I have to go," Imani said, her mind racing. "I'll call you back." She hung up, immediately dialing Caleb's number. It went straight to voicemail. "This is Caleb. Leave a message." "Caleb, it's me. There's a news report. They have a picture of us at dinner last night. Call me when you get this." She ended the call, her hands shaking slightly. It was happening already, exactly what Caleb had warned her about. The invasion of their privacy, the scrutiny, the questions. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Angela. Martin from City Life magazine. We'd love to speak with you about your relationship with Caleb Hayes. Please call me at this number." Before she could process this, another text arrived, then another. Reporters, gossip columnists, all wanting to know who she was, how she'd met Caleb, whether it was serious. Her phone rang again, another unknown number. Imani declined the call, feeling panic rising in her chest. How had they found her number? What else did they know? Just as she was considering turning off her phone entirely, Caleb's name appeared on the screen. She answered immediately. "Caleb, have you seen—" "I've seen it," he said, his voice tight. "Imani, I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I was afraid of. How did they find us? Find me? Someone at the restaurant must have tipped them off. It happens." He sounded exhausted. "Are reporters contacting you?" "Yes," Imani admitted. "Texts, calls. How did they get my number?" "They have ways," Caleb said grimly. "Listen, I'm sending a car to pick you up. Pack a bag for a few days. I have a place outside the city where we can go until this dies down." "I can't just leave, Caleb. I have job interviews lined up." "Reschedule them," he urged. Please, Imani. I have seen how vicious these people can be. I don't want you facing them alone. Imani glanced at her phone as 3 more texts arrived in rapid succession. Okay, she finally said. When will the car be here? 20 minutes, I'll meet you there, and Imani, it's going to be all right, I promise. After hanging up, Imani moved on autopilot, throwing clothes and toiletries into an overnight bag. She texted the hiring manager at the medical office where she was supposed to interview tomorrow, making up an excuse about a family emergency. Exactly 20 minutes later, her phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. Car is downstairs. Black SUV Imani peered out her window and saw a sleek black vehicle with tinted windows parked at the curb. As she watched, a man in a suit stepped out and opened the back door. Taking a deep breath, Imani grabbed her bag and headed downstairs. As she approached the SUV, she noticed a woman with a camera across the street, trying to appear casual, but clearly watching. The suited man, a driver, she realized, nodded respectfully. Ms. Rhodes, Mr. Hayes asked me to escort you. Thank you, Imani said, sliding into the back seat. To her surprise, Caleb wasn't inside. Instead, a sleek blonde woman in a business suit sat primly on the opposite seat, a tablet in her hands. Ms. Rhodes, the woman said, not looking up from her screen. I'm Vanessa Klein, Mr. Hayes's personal assistant. He's meeting us at the estate. The estate? Imani echoed. Millbrook, the Hayes family property upstate. Vanessa's voice was clipped, professional. It's about a 2-hour drive. There's water in the console if you need it. As the car pulled away from the curb, Imani saw the woman with the camera snapping photos. She was taking pictures of me, she said, alarmed. Yes, Vanessa agreed, still not looking up. We expected that. Don't worry, the windows are tinted. She won't get anything usable. The casual way Vanessa dismissed the invasion of privacy made Imani uncomfortable. Does this happen often? People following Caleb with cameras? Mr. Hayes is very careful about his public appearances, Vanessa replied. But yes, when he is spotted, there's usually interest. And what about the women he dates? Do they get this treatment too? For the first time, Vanessa looked directly at Imani, her blue eyes assessing. Mr. Hayes doesn't date Ms. Rhodes, not publicly at least, which is why your appearance has caused such a stir. The implication was clear. Imani was an anomaly, a disruption to Caleb's carefully controlled life. I see, Imani said quietly. Vanessa's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, I've never seen him reschedule board meetings for anyone before. Whatever's happening between you two, it's different. The rest of the journey passed in silence, Imani watching as city buildings gave way to suburbs, then to rolling countryside. Finally, the SUV turned onto a private road, winding through dense trees before emerging at a massive iron gate with an ornate H worked into the design. The gate swung open as they approached, revealing a sweeping driveway that led to what could only be described as a mansion, a sprawling stone structure with multiple wings, surrounded by manicured gardens. This is where Caleb lives, Imani asked, unable to keep the awe from her voice. This is the family home, Vanessa corrected. Mr. Hayes has his own residence in the city, but given the circumstances, his father thought it best to— His father? Imani interrupted. Caleb's father is here? Vanessa's expression turned guarded. Mr. Hayes Sr. arrived this morning. He's waiting in the main house. Anxiety twisted in Imani's stomach. Caleb had been so adamant about keeping her away from his father, about protecting her from his manipulation. So why were they here at the family estate? As the car pulled to a stop at the front entrance, Imani saw Caleb pacing on the wide stone steps. He looked different here, tense, formal, in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks. When he spotted the car, relief washed over his features. He was at the door before the driver could open it, reaching for Imani's hand as she stepped out. I'm so sorry about all this, he said, his voice low. Are you okay? I'm fine, Imani assured him, though her heart was racing. But Caleb, your assistant, said your father is here. I thought— I know, he said grimly. This wasn't my plan. My father called Vanessa directly, overrode my instructions. I only found out when I arrived. So what do we do now? Caleb's jaw tightened. We leave right now. I'll drive us to my place in the city. Caleb. A deep voice cut through their conversation, commanding and cold. Imani turned to see a tall, distinguished man standing in the mansion's doorway. Though his hair was silver and lines etched his face, there was no mistaking the resemblance to Caleb. The same strong jaw, the same broad shoulders. But where Caleb's eyes were warm, this man's were calculating, assessing Imani with a gaze that felt like ice. Father, Caleb acknowledged, his posture stiffening. We were just leaving. Nonsense, Elijah Hayes said, his smile not reaching his eyes. You've only just arrived, and I haven't even met your friend. The way he hesitated before the word friend made Imani's skin crawl. This isn't a social visit, Caleb said firmly. The press found out about Imani. We needed somewhere to regroup before they swarm her apartment building. Precisely why you should stay, Elijah countered smoothly. The estate is secure, private. No reporters can reach you here. He turned, his attention fully to Imani, extending a hand. Elijah Hayes, a pleasure to meet the young woman who's caught my son's attention. Imani shook his hand, noting how cold his fingers felt against hers. Imani Rhodes. Thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Hayes, but I think Caleb's right. We should— Please, Elijah interrupted. Call me Elijah, and at least come inside for lunch. You've had a long drive. Caleb's hand found Imani's, squeezing gently. A silent question. What do you want to do? Imani hesitated. Every instinct told her to leave, to avoid this man who had caused Caleb so much pain. But looking at the mansion, at the perfectly manicured grounds stretching in every direction, she realized she wanted to understand this part of Caleb's life, the world that had shaped him. Lunch would be nice, she said finally. Thank you, Elijah. Satisfaction flickered across the older man's face. Excellent. Vanessa, have Miss Rhodes's bag taken to the Blue Guest Suite. Caleb, why don't you show your friend around while I finish? Up a call, we'll eat in 30 minutes. Without waiting for a response, Elijah turned and disappeared into the mansion. We don't have to stay, Caleb said the moment his father was out of earshot. We can still leave. Imani shook her head. It's okay. I want to understand where you come from, Caleb. All of it. Even the parts you're not proud of. Caleb's expression softened, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. You're remarkable, you know that. So you keep telling me, Imani smiled. Now, show me this mansion of yours. They entered through massive oak doors into a foyer that could have housed Imani's entire apartment. Marble floors gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers, and artwork that looked museum-worthy hung on walls covered in rich, textured wallpaper. This place is incredible, Imani said, taking it all in. It's a mausoleum, Caleb replied quietly. Nothing has changed since my mother died. My father preserves everything exactly as she left it. He led her through formal sitting rooms and studies, a massive library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and finally out onto a terrace overlooking gardens that seemed to stretch forever. I grew up here, Caleb said, leaning against the stone balustrade. But it never felt like home, not really. After my mother got sick, this place became a hospital, and after she died, it became a shrine. Imani joined him at the railing, her shoulder brushing against his. Is that why you keep your own place in the city? Partly, Caleb admitted, but mostly because here I'm always Caleb Elijah Hayes III, heir to the Hayes fortune. I can never just be me. Like you can with me? Imani asked softly. Caleb turned to her, his eyes intense. Exactly like that. When I'm with you, none of this matters. The money, the name, the legacy, it all falls away. You see me, Imani, just me. Before she could respond, a uniformed staff member appeared at the terrace doors. Mr. Hayes, lunch is served in the garden room. Caleb sighed. Thank you, Edward. We'll be right there. As they followed the servant through the mansion, Caleb leaned close to Imani's ear. Remember, my father always has an agenda. Don't let him manipulate you. I can handle myself, Imani assured him, though her confidence wavered as they entered a sun-filled room where Elijah Hayes sat at the head of a table large enough for 12. though only 3 places were set. "Ah, there you are," Elijah said, rising. "I hope Caleb has shown you some of our home's highlights, Miss Rhodes. Please call me Imani," she said, taking the seat a servant pulled out for her. "And yes, it's a beautiful property. It's been in the Hayes family for 4 generations," Elijah said proudly. "One day it will be Caleb's, along with the entire Hayes portfolio, of course." "Father," Caleb's voice held a warning. "We didn't come here to discuss the family business." "Of course not," Elijah agreed smoothly. "We're here to get to know your friend. Tell me, Imani, what do you do?" "I was a medical receptionist until recently," Imani said, noticing how Elijah's eyebrow raised at the word was. "I'm currently interviewing for similar positions." "I see," Elijah said, his tone making it clear he found her career underwhelming. "And how did you and my son meet? Caleb is usually so selective about his social circle." Imani glanced at Caleb, who nodded encouragingly. "We met at a restaurant, actually. I was supposed to be on a blind date with someone else, but I sat at the wrong table. Caleb's table. A flicker of something, amusement, disdain, crossed Elijah's face. "How serendipitous." "It was," Caleb said firmly, reaching for Imani's hand on the table. "Best mistake anyone's ever made at my table." The tenderness in his voice made Imani's heart swell, but Elijah's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "Charming," he said, "though one wonders if perhaps it wasn't entirely accidental. Caleb is, after all, quite a catch." The implication was clear. Elijah thought she had targeted Caleb deliberately. "Father," Caleb's voice was sharp. "That's enough. I'm merely making conversation," Elijah said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "To answer your unasked question," Imani said, her voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside her. "I had no idea who Caleb was when I sat at his table. I didn't know he was a Hayes, and frankly, I wouldn't have cared if I had known." Elijah studied her, his eyes calculating. "Forgive me, Imani. I'm simply protective of my son, you understand, I'm sure." "I understand that you don't think I'm good enough for him," Imani replied bluntly. "That's your right, but with all due respect, it's not your decision to make." A tense silence fell over the table, then surprisingly, Elijah laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. "She has spirit, Caleb, I'll give her that." Caleb's hand tightened around Imani's. "She has a lot more than that if you'd bother to see it." Elijah waved his hand dismissively. "Time will tell, but speaking of time, we have more pressing matters to discuss. I've called Gregory Hampton." "The PR director," Caleb frowned. "Why?" "Because, son, this little situation has created a media opportunity we can't ignore." Elijah turned to Imani, his smile calculating. "The Hayes Hotel Group is about to announce a major charitable initiative, a foundation to provide medical care for underprivileged children. Given your background in the medical field, we thought you might be interested in being involved." "Involved?" "How?" Imani asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. "As the face of the campaign, alongside Caleb, of course. A photo shoot, some interviews, a few appearances at fundraising events. Nothing too taxing." Caleb stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Absolutely not. You are not using Imani for a PR stunt." "It's not a stunt, Caleb," Elijah said, his voice hardening. "It's good business. The foundation is legitimate. But why not capitalize on the public's sudden interest in your love life? A heartwarming story about the Hayes heir finding love with a compassionate medical worker. The press will eat it up." "This is exactly why I keep my private life private," Caleb snapped. "You see people as props, tools to advance the Hayes brand." "I see opportunities," Elijah corrected, "and this is a golden one, especially given the difficulties we've been having with the Sullivan acquisition." Imani stood as well, feeling suddenly nauseated. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I need some air." She walked out of the garden room, not sure where she was going, but needing to escape the suffocating tension. She found herself back on the terrace, where she and Caleb had talked earlier, the vast gardens stretching out before her. Behind her, she heard Caleb and his father's voices rising in argument. Words like image and responsibility and family legacy drifted through the open doors. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, another text from an unknown number. Imani Rhodes. This is Trevor Lynn from the Daily Chronicle. We're running a story about you and Caleb Hayes. Care to comment on rumors that you're a former employee of the Hayes hotel chain with a grudge? Imani's hand shook as she read the message. Rumors? What rumors? Another text arrived. Sources say you met Caleb Hayes while working as a maid at the downtown Hayes Hotel. Is it true you were fired for theft? Oh my God, Imani whispered, horror washing over her. These weren't just invasive questions. They were lies. Deliberate, malicious lies designed to paint her as a gold digger, a thief. Footsteps sounded behind her, and she turned to see Caleb approaching, his expression stormy. I'm sorry about that, he said. My father has always been— Caleb, Imani interrupted, holding out her phone. Look at these messages. He took the phone, his face darkening as he read. This is exactly what I was afraid of, he said, his voice tight with anger. They're trying to discredit you before they even know you. But where are these rumors coming from, Imani asked. I've never worked for a Hayes hotel. I've never stolen anything in my life. Caleb's jaw clenched. Someone's feeding them this. Creating a narrative. Who would do that? Before Caleb could answer, his own phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his expression grim. It's Gregory Hampton, my father's PR guy, he answered, putting the call on speaker. Greg, what the hell is going on? There are reporters texting Imani with false accusations about her past. I know, Gregory's voice was calm, professional. We're monitoring the situation. But, Caleb, this is exactly why your father wants to get ahead of the story. If you and Imani participate in the foundation launch, we can control the narrative. Present her in a positive light. So my father is behind these rumors? Caleb demanded. He's smearing Imani to force us to cooperate with his PR plan? There was a telling pause before Gregory answered. I wouldn't put it quite like that. But you're not denying it. Caleb's voice was dangerously quiet. Caleb, you know how this works, Gregory sighed. We need to protect the Hayes name. If you won't cooperate with the official strategy, we have to explore alternative approaches. Tell my father, Caleb said, each word precise and cold, that if one more false story about Imani appears anywhere, I will walk away from the company, permanently. Is that clear? Caleb, be reasonable. Is that clear? Another pause. I'll relay your message. Caleb ended the call, his hand shaking with barely contained rage. I'm so sorry, Imani. I never wanted you dragged into this ugliness. Imani felt numb, the full weight of what was happening finally sinking in. Your father is deliberately spreading lies about me to force us to cooperate with his PR plan. It's how he operates, Caleb said, disgust evident in his voice. Manipulation. Control. It's the only language he understands. And now I'm caught in the middle of it. Imani looked out over the perfectly manicured gardens, feeling suddenly small and out of place. Caleb, what am I doing here? In this world, these people would eat someone like me alive. No, Caleb said fiercely, taking her hands in his. Don't. Let them make you doubt yourself. Don't let them make you doubt us. But maybe they're right, Imani said quietly. Not about the lies, but about me not belonging in your world. Look at this place, Caleb. Look at your life. I'm a girl from a one-bedroom apartment who shops at thrift stores and applies for receptionist jobs. And you're the most real, most genuine person I've ever known, Caleb insisted. You think I care about any of this? He gestured to the mansion, the grounds. Without you, it's all empty, meaningless. Imani wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that what they had was stronger than the forces trying to tear them apart. But doubt had taken root, fed by Elijah's dismissive gaze and the cruel texts from reporters. I need to go home, she said suddenly. I need space to think. Pain flashed across Caleb's face. Imani, please, don't let my father win. This isn't about winning or losing, Caleb. It's about me figuring out if I can handle this life. The scrutiny, the lies, the manipulation. We can face it together, Caleb pleaded. I'll protect you. Imani shook her head sadly. That's just it. I don't want to need protection. I don't want to be someone you have to shield from your world. She took a deep breath. I need a few days, Caleb, to think about whether this us is what I really want. Before he could respond, Vanessa appeared at the terrace doors. "Mr. Hayes, your father would like to speak with you. He says it's urgent." "Tell him it will." "Have to wait," Caleb said, not taking his eyes off Imani. "He also asked me to inform you that the Sullivan deal is in jeopardy," Vanessa added. "The board is calling an emergency meeting." Conflict played across Caleb's features, duty to the company warring with his desire to stay with Imani. "Go," Imani said gently. "This is your life, Caleb, your responsibility. I understand that." "This isn't over," Caleb said, his voice low and determined. "Promise me you'll let me explain once you've had time to think." Imani nodded, her throat tight with unshed tears. "I promise." Caleb hesitated, then leaned forward to press a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I'll have a car take you home whenever you're ready. And Imani, what I feel for you, it's real. The realest thing in my life." Then he was gone, following Vanessa back into the mansion, back to the world he'd been born into. Alone on the terrace, Imani pulled out her phone and typed a message to Nia. "Can you pick me up? I'm at the Hayes estate upstate. I'll text you the address." Nia's response came almost immediately. "OMG, yes, on my way." "What happened?" Imani stared at the question, unsure how to answer. How could she explain the way her heart had soared when Caleb looked at her, then plummeted when she glimpsed the reality of his world? How could she put into words the fear that what they had might not be strong enough to withstand the forces working against them? "I'll tell you when you get here," she finally replied. "It's complicated." As she waited for Nia to arrive, Imani gazed out at the perfect gardens, the perfect mansion, the perfect life that Caleb had been born into, a life she had stumbled into by mistake, by sitting at the wrong table on the right night. The question now was whether that mistake had been a blessing or a curse, and whether the connection they'd found, so genuine, so unexpected, was worth fighting for. Because one thing was becoming painfully clear: loving Caleb Hayes meant loving all of him, including the parts of his world that seemed determined to push her away. "He said what?" Nia's voice rose in indignation as she drove Imani back to the city. "His father actually tried to use you as some kind of PR prop?" Imani nodded, staring out the window as the countryside blurred past. "He wants us to be the face of some new charity foundation. Make the Hayes family look caring and connected to regular people, while simultaneously spreading lies about you to the press," Nia added, her hands tightening on the steering wheel. "That's some seriously twisted manipulation. Caleb says it's how his father operates, control through any means necessary." Imani sighed, the events of the day catching up with her. "I just never imagined I'd be caught in the middle of it." Nia glanced at her cousin, concern etched on her face. "So what are you going to do about Caleb, I mean?" "I don't know," Imani admitted. "When it's just the two of us, everything feels so right. He's kind and thoughtful, and he listens, really listens when I talk, but his world—" She shook her head. "His world is a battlefield I don't know how to navigate." "Do you love him?" Nia asked bluntly. Imani's breath caught at the question. Love? Was that what this feeling was? This mixture of longing and fear, of belonging and uncertainty? "It's too soon," she said finally. "We've only known each other a few weeks. Girl, please." Nia rolled her eyes. "Time doesn't mean anything when it comes to love. Some people can be together for years and feel nothing. Others know in days." "Even if I do have feelings for him," Imani said carefully, "that doesn't solve the problem. His father hates me. The press is spreading lies about me. And somewhere out there is a real Caleb Hayes, not the one I'm falling for, but the heir to a hotel empire who has responsibilities I can't even imagine." "So you're just going to walk away, without fighting for him?" Imani stared at her hands folded in her lap. "I don't know if it's a fight I can win, Nia, or even one I should be fighting." When they finally reached Imani's apartment building, a small group of photographers was waiting outside. They surged forward as Nia's car approached, cameras raised. "Oh God," Imani groaned, slumping down in her seat. "How did they find my address?" "Rich people's gossip is big business," Nia said grimly. "Keep your head down. I'll pull into the alley behind the building." They managed to slip in through the service entrance, avoiding the photographers. Once safely inside Imani's apartment, Nia immediately began pulling the blinds closed. "You should probably stay away from the windows for a while," she advised. "These vultures won't give up easily." Imani sank onto her sofa, suddenly exhausted. "What am I supposed to do? Hide in my apartment forever? No, but maybe for a few days." Nia sat beside her, taking her hand. "Look, I know I was excited about you dating a Hayes, but I never wanted this for you." "I know." Imani leaned her head against her cousin's shoulder. "I just need time to think, to figure out what I really want." "Well, you've got time now," Nia said, gesturing to the closed blinds. "Want me to stay with you tonight?" Imani shook her head. "I'll be okay, I just need some sleep." After Nia left, with promises to check in tomorrow, Imani finally allowed the tears she'd been holding back to fall. She cried for the simple happiness she'd felt with Caleb before the world intruded. She cried for the doubt now clouding what had been so clear, and she cried for the fear that no matter what she decided, someone would end up hurt. Her phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. "Are you home safe?" "I've been worried." Imani hesitated before responding. "Yes. There were photographers outside my building, but we avoided them." His reply came immediately. "I'm so sorry, Imani. This is all my fault." Another text followed. "I miss you already." Imani stared at the words, her heart aching. "I miss you too," she typed, then deleted it without sending. Instead, she wrote, "I need some time, Caleb, like I said." "I understand," he replied. "Take all the time you need. Just know I'm here, waiting, whenever you're ready to talk." Imani set her phone aside, knowing that if she kept texting him, her resolve would weaken. She needed clarity, distance, perspective. But as she crawled into bed that night, her thoughts kept returning to Caleb's words on the terrace. "What I feel for you, it's real. The realest thing in my life." The question was whether real feelings were enough to bridge the vast differences in their worlds. The next morning, Imani woke to her phone ringing. It was a number she didn't recognize, but after the 10th ring, she finally answered. "Hello? Ms. Rhodes, this is Vanessa Klein, Mr. Hayes' assistant." Imani sat up, immediately alert. "Is something wrong? Is Caleb okay?" "Mr. Hayes is fine," Vanessa assured her, "but he asked me to warn you. The Daily Chronicle is running a story about you this morning. It's not flattering." Imani's stomach clenched. "What does it say?" "It alleges that you deliberately targeted Mr. Hayes at the restaurant, knowing who he was. It claims you've done this before with other wealthy men." "That's absurd," Imani exclaimed. "I'd never even heard of Caleb before that night." "Mr. Hayes knows that," Vanessa said, her voice softening slightly. "He's already instructed our legal team to demand a retraction and threaten a lawsuit. Will that work?" "It might slow them down, but honestly, the damage is already done. Once a story is out there, people believe what they want to believe." Imani closed her eyes, trying to process this new development. "Why are you telling me this?" "Vanessa, I thought you worked for the Hayes family. Shouldn't you be on their side?" There was a pause before Vanessa answered. "I work for Caleb, not his father, and I've never seen him like this about anyone before. He cares about you, Ms. Rhodes, more than I think even he realizes." After hanging up, Imani grabbed her laptop and searched for the Daily Chronicle. The headline made her heart sink. "Hayes heirs new girlfriend, gold digger with a history." The article was worse than she'd imagined, painting her as a calculating opportunist who had researched Caleb before deliberately sitting at his table that night. It quoted sources close to the Hayes family, claiming she had a pattern of targeting wealthy men. Imani slammed the laptop closed, anger and hurt coursing through her. This was Elijah Hayes' doing. She was certain of it. He was trying to drive her away from Caleb by any means necessary. Her phone rang again. "Nia this time. Have you seen it?" her cousin demanded without preamble. "The Chronicle article?" "Yes." "It's disgusting," Nia fumed. "I can't believe they can print lies like that. You should sue them." "Caleb's already on it, apparently," Imani said, her voice tired. "But the damage is done." "Oh, honey," Nia's voice softened. "I'm coming over. You shouldn't be alone right now." "No," Imani said, suddenly decisive. "I'm not going to hide in my apartment feeling sorry." For myself, I have a job interview at Riverside Medical Center this afternoon. If I'm going to go, with reporters camped outside your building, are you sure that's a good idea? I can't put my life on hold because of this, Imani insisted. I need this job, Nia. I need something normal and stable right now. After ending the call, Imani showered and dressed in her interview outfit, a simple navy skirt suit she'd splurged on when she got her last job. As she applied her makeup, she studied her reflection in the mirror. She looked tired, stressed, but she was still herself. Still Imani Rhodes, the girl who had worked her way through community college, who had cared for her grandmother during her final illness, who had always faced life's challenges head-on. She wasn't going to let Elijah Hayes or the Daily Chronicle change that. When she opened her apartment door, however, her confidence wavered. How was she going to get past the reporters? She couldn't ask Nia to brave that gauntlet again. As if in answer to her thoughts, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Rhodes, this is Edward, the Hayes family driver. Mr. Hayes sent me to help you get to your interview. I'm at the service entrance if you'd like assistance. Imani hesitated. Was this Caleb's doing or his father's? Another text came through. Mr. Caleb Hayes, that is. He mentioned you have an interview today and thought you might need help avoiding the press. Relief washed over her. Caleb, of course he would think of this, would try to help without intruding on the space she'd asked for. Thank you, she texted. Back? I'll be down in 5 minutes. Edward was waiting by a nondescript sedan, not the flashy SUV from yesterday. Good afternoon, Ms. Rhodes, he said with a small bow. Mr. Hayes thought a less conspicuous vehicle might be wise. He thought. Right, Imani said, sliding into the back seat. Thank you for doing this. My pleasure, Ma'am. Mr. Hayes said to tell you he hopes your interview goes well and that he's thinking of you. The simple message made Imani's chest tighten. Even amid the chaos, Caleb was still the same thoughtful man who had sat across from her at that restaurant table. The interview at Riverside Medical Center went surprisingly well. The office manager, a no-nonsense woman named Rita, seemed impressed by Imani's experience and references. They discussed salary and benefits, and by the end, Imani had a tentative job offer, pending a background check. We'd like you to start next Monday, if that works for you, Rita said, shaking Imani's hand. That would be perfect, Imani replied, relief flooding through her. A job, stability, a return to normalcy. As she left the medical center, she saw Edward waiting patiently by the car. How did it go, Ms. Rhodes? He asked as he opened the door for her. I got the job, Imani said, unable to keep the smile from her face. I start next week. Congratulations, Edward said warmly. Mr. Hayes will be pleased to hear it. How is he? Imani asked before she could stop herself. Caleb, I mean. Edward's expression turned sympathetic. Worried about you, ma'am. And angry about the articles. He's been in meetings with lawyers all day. Imani nodded, guilt washing over her. While she'd been trying to move forward with her life, Caleb had been fighting to protect her reputation. Would you like to see him? Edward asked quietly. He's at his penthouse, not the family estate. I could take you there instead of your apartment. Imani hesitated. She'd asked for time, for space, but the thought of seeing Caleb, of feeling the comfort of his presence, was tempting. No, she finally said. Not yet. I still need time to think, but please tell him thank you. For the car, for the lawyers, for everything. Edward nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course, Ms. Rhodes. When they arrived back at her apartment building, the crowd of reporters had doubled in size. Edward frowned. This won't do. Let me call for backup. Before Imani could ask what he meant, he was on the phone, speaking quietly but urgently. Within minutes, 3 large men in suits appeared at the service entrance. Security from the Hayes Hotel downtown, Edward explained. They'll create a path for you. With the security team forming a protective barrier around her, Imani made it into her building without being harassed by the reporters, though their shouted questions followed. Her through the door. Ms. Rhodes, is it true you targeted Caleb Hayes? Imani, did you know who he was when you sat at his table? Are you and Caleb Hayes still together? Once safely inside her apartment, Imani sank onto the sofa, exhaustion setting in. This was her life now. Security teams and reporters and false accusations in newspapers. All because she sat at the wrong table one night. Her phone rang. Caleb. She stared at his name on the screen, wanting desperately to hear his voice, but afraid of. Weakening her resolve, on the fifth ring she answered, "Hello? Imani." The relief in his voice was palpable. "Edward told me you got the job. Congratulations." "Thank you," she said softly. "And thank you for sending the car, and the security team." "It was the least I could do," Caleb replied. "I'm so sorry about the Chronicle article. My lawyers are handling it, but the damage is done," Imani finished for him. "I know." A silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. "I miss you," Caleb finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "I know you asked for space, and I'm trying to respect that, but I needed to hear your voice." Imani closed her eyes, his words breaking through the walls she'd been trying to build. "I miss you too," she admitted. "But Caleb, nothing has changed. Your father is still spreading lies about me. The press is still camped outside my building. Your world is still a place where I don't belong." "You belong with me," Caleb insisted. "The rest is just circumstance. We can figure it out together." "Can we?" Imani challenged gently. "Your father will never accept me. The press will never. Leave us alone. Every time we go out, there will be photographers, questions, speculation. I don't care about any of that," Caleb said. "I only care about you, about us." "But that's just it," Imani sighed. "You should care. The Hayes name, the business, it's your legacy, your responsibility. I don't want to be the reason you turn your back on that." "What if I want to?" Caleb asked, his voice suddenly fierce. "What if I'd choose you over all of it?" The question hung in the air, stunning in its implication. Would he really give up everything, his name, his wealth, his future, for her? "You don't mean that," Imani said softly. "I do," Caleb insisted. "Imani, these past few weeks with you have been the happiest of my life. For the first time I've felt like a real person. Not a Hayes, not an heir, not a walking balance sheet. Just a man who found something genuine in a world of fake smiles and hidden agendas." His words pierced straight to Imani's heart, echoing her own feelings. "Caleb, just say you'll see me," he pleaded. "One dinner. My place where there's no press, no father, no expectations. Just us." Imani hesitated, knowing that seeing him would make it harder to think clearly. But the longing in his voice matched the ache in her own chest. "Okay," she finally said. "One. Dinner." The relief in his voice was audible. "Tomorrow night. I'll send Edward at 7. "Tomorrow night," Imani agreed. After hanging up, she wondered if she'd made a mistake. Would seeing Caleb again only make the inevitable goodbye harder? Because despite his passionate words, Imani couldn't imagine a future where Caleb Hayes walked away from his family empire for a medical receptionist from a one-bedroom apartment. Some fairy tales were too implausible even for dreaming. The next evening, Edward arrived precisely at 7. This time, there were 4 security men to escort Imani through the gauntlet of reporters, their questions even more intrusive than before. "Imani, have you seen the video of Caleb's ex-girlfriend calling you a social climber?" "Ms. Rhodes, what do you say to allegations that you've targeted other wealthy men in the past? Is it true that Elijah Hayes has offered you money to stay away from his son?" Imani kept her head down, grateful for the security team's protective formation around her. Once in the car, she asked Edward, "Is it always going to be like this?" The older man's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. "Interest will die down eventually, Ms. Rhodes. These things always do. Some new scandal will come along and they'll forget about you and Mr. Hayes." "Unless we stay together," Imani said quietly. "Then it never ends, does it?" Edward's silence was answer enough. Caleb's place in the city turned out to be a stunning penthouse overlooking Central Park. But unlike the family estate, this space felt lived in, personal. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with mystery novels and jazz records. Photographs, not of celebrities or business associates, but of landscapes, architectural details, simple moments, hung in simple frames. Caleb himself opened the door before Imani could knock, as if he'd been waiting just on the other side. The sight of him, his warm brown eyes, the dimple that appeared as he smiled, made her heart race. "You came," he said softly, as if he'd half expected her to change her mind. "I said I would," Imani replied, stepping into the apartment. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the physical distance between them charged with all they'd left unsaid. Then Caleb stepped forward, his arms enfolding her in an embrace that felt like coming home. Imani sank into his warmth, letting herself forget, just for a moment, all the reasons they shouldn't be together. She breathed in his scent, clean laundry and subtle cologne, and felt the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. "I've missed you," Caleb murmured into her hair. "These past few days have been torture." Imani pulled back slightly, needing to see his face. "For me too," she admitted, "but nothing's changed, Caleb. The problems are still there." "Let's not talk about that yet," he said, taking her hand. "Let's just have dinner, be together, the way we were before everything got complicated." He led her into the dining room, where a table was set for two, candles already lit. But instead of the formal dinner she'd half expected, Imani saw cartons of Chinese takeout arranged alongside a bottle of wine. "I remembered you saying you love sesame chicken," Caleb explained, pulling out her chair. "From the Golden Dragon on 4th Street. You said it was the best in the city." The fact that he remembered such a small detail from one of their conversations made Imani's chest tighten. "You went all the way downtown for takeout," Edward did, Caleb admitted with a smile. "But I would have." As they ate, they carefully avoided the subject of his father, the press, the differences in their worlds. Instead, they talked about books they'd read, memories from childhood, dreams they'd once had. It was easy, comfortable, like those first hours at the restaurant table where they'd met. After dinner, they moved to the sofa, Caleb's arm draped casually around Imani's shoulders as if it belonged there. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the lights of the city sparkled like stars. "Your place is beautiful," Imani said, looking around at the space that so clearly reflected Caleb's personality. "It feels like you." "This is the only place I can truly be myself," Caleb admitted. "No Hayes Hotel logos, no family portraits, no reminders of the legacy I'm supposed to uphold." "You really don't like being a Hayes, do you?" Imani asked softly. Caleb was quiet for a moment, considering. "It's not that I don't like it. It's that I've never felt like it was a choice. From the moment I was born, my path was set." Caleb Elijah Hayes III, future CEO of Hayes Hotel Group, keeper of the family legacy. "But you're good at it," Imani pointed out. "Edward mentioned something about a merger you're handling." "I'm good at the business part," Caleb agreed. "I enjoy the challenge of it, the strategy. What I hate is the rest, the social obligations, the constant scrutiny, the expectations." He turned to face her fully. "Until I met you, I'd never had anyone in my life who didn't want something from me. Money, connections, status, everyone has an agenda." "Everyone except the woman who sat at the wrong table," Imani said with a small smile. "Exactly." Caleb's eyes were intense, almost pleading. "Don't you see, Imani, that's why what we have is so precious, so worth fighting for." Imani's smile faded. "But how do we fight this, Caleb? Your father is determined to drive me away. The press has already painted me as a gold digger, and even if we somehow overcome all that, we still come from completely different worlds." "We make our own world," Caleb said simply. "Together." He leaned forward, his lips finding hers in a kiss that sent warmth spreading through Imani's entire body. She returned the kiss, her hands coming up to frame his face, losing herself in the connection between them. When they finally broke apart, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered. "Not for that, just to be close. I sleep better when you're near." The vulnerability in his admission made Imani's heart ache. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll stay." Later, lying in Caleb's arms in his massive bed, Imani listened to the steady rhythm of his breathing as he slept. She thought about how right it felt to be here with him, how perfectly they fit together, despite the chaos swirling around them. Maybe he was right. Maybe they could make their own world, find a way forward that honored both his responsibilities and her independence. Or maybe she was just fooling herself, clinging to a fairy tale that could never have a happy ending. Morning came, with golden light streaming through Caleb's bedroom windows. Imani woke to find him watching her, a soft smile on his face. "You know it's a little creepy to watch people sleep," she teased, her voice husky with morning. "Can't help it," Caleb replied, tracing a finger along her cheek. "You're beautiful when you're dreaming." Imani stretched, feeling more rested than she had in days. "And what time is it?" "Almost 9, Caleb said. "I let you sleep. You looked like you needed it." 9. Imani sat up abruptly. "I have a second interview at Riverside at 10. "Plenty of time," Caleb assured her. "Edward can have you there in 20 minutes. And I had Vanessa pick up some clothes for you last night. They're in the guest bathroom." Imani blinked, touched by his thoughtfulness. "You think of everything, don't you?" "I try," he said, leaning forward to press a kiss to her forehead. "Especially when it comes to you." The clothes Vanessa had selected were simple but elegant. A dove-grey dress that fit Imani perfectly, with a matching jacket and low heels. How the woman had known her size, Imani didn't want to ask. After a quick breakfast, Edward was waiting with the car. Caleb walked Imani to the elevator, reluctance clear in his expression. "Dinner again tonight?" he asked. "I'll cook this time. I make a mean pasta carbonara." Imani hesitated. Last night had been wonderful, but she still hadn't resolved the fundamental questions about their future. "Let me think about it," she said honestly. "I'll text you after my interview." Disappointment flickered across Caleb's face, but he nodded. "Good luck today. They'd be lucky to have you." As Edward drove her to the medical center, Imani's mind was a jumble of conflicting thoughts. Being with Caleb felt so right, so natural. But the obstacles between them seemed insurmountable. How could they possibly build a life together when his world was so determined to push her out? The second interview went even better than the first. Rita, the office manager, introduced Imani to the doctors she'd be working with, showed her the scheduling system and had her fill out employment paperwork. "We're excited to have you join us," Rita said warmly. "Monday at 8 a.m. sharp, okay?" "I'll be there," Imani promised, relief washing over her. A job, a fresh start. Maybe things were finally looking up. As she left the medical center, her phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. "Hope the interview went well. Thinking of you." She smiled, typing back, "Got the job officially. Start Monday." His response came immediately. "That's wonderful. We should celebrate. Dinner tonight?" Before she could reply, Edward stepped forward from where he'd been waiting. "Ms. Rhodes, I'm afraid there's a situation." "What kind of situation?" Imani asked, alarmed by his serious expression. "Mr. Hayes, the elder Mr. Hayes, is holding a press conference at noon about you and Mr. Caleb." Imani felt the blood drain from her face. "What? Why wasn't Caleb told?" "He was just informed," Edward said grimly. "He's on his way to the Hayes Hotel downtown now, trying to stop it." "Take me there," Imani said, her voice stronger than she felt. "Now." As they sped through the city streets, Imani's phone rang. Caleb. "Are you watching?" he demanded without preamble, his voice tight with fury. "Watching what?" "Edward just told me about the press conference. I'm on my way to the hotel now." "It's too late," Caleb said, and Imani could hear the sounds of traffic in the background. "My father's already started. It's being live-streamed on the company website." "What's he saying?" Imani asked, dread pooling in her stomach. "He's announcing the new Hayes Foundation for Children's Medical Care," Caleb said bitterly. "And he's just introduced the foundation's new spokesperson, Serena Walsh." "Who is Serena Walsh?" Caleb's voice was flat. "My ex-girlfriend. The one my father always wanted me to marry. She's a pediatrician from an old money family with connections throughout the medical world." Imani felt as if she'd been punched. "I don't understand. What does this have to do with me?" "Everything," Caleb said, his voice breaking. "He's using Serena to send a message, that she's the right kind of woman for a Hayes, the right kind of woman for me. and by extension that you're not. The cruelty of it, the deliberate, calculated humiliation made Imani's eyes sting with tears. "Caleb, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize," he said fiercely. "This isn't your fault, it's his, and I'm done letting him control my life. Where are you now?" "In the car with Edward. We're about 10 minutes from the hotel." "Good. Meet me in the lobby. I'm about to do something my father will never forgive." The line went dead before Imani could ask what he meant. Anxiety churned in her stomach as Edward navigated through midday traffic. What was Caleb planning? And would it only make things worse? When they finally arrived at the Hayes Hotel, the lobby was buzzing with activity. A crowd had gathered near the grand staircase, where a temporary stage had been set up. On it stood Elijah Hayes, looking distinguished in a perfectly tailored suit, alongside a tall, elegant blonde woman whom Imani assumed was Serena Walsh. "Commitment to children's health care across the country," Elijah was saying into a microphone. "The Hayes Foundation will partner with leading hospitals to ensure that no child is denied medical care due to financial constraints." Reporters crowded the front of the stage, cameras flashing. At the back of the crowd, Imani spotted Caleb, his expression thunderous as he pushed his way forward. "Caleb!" she called, hurrying toward him. He turned at the sound of her voice, relief washing over his features. "You're here," he said, taking her hand. "Good. I want you with me for this." "For what?" Imani asked. But Caleb was already pulling her through the crowd toward the stage. On the platform, Elijah was introducing Serena. Dr. Walsh brings not only her medical expertise, but her compassion and dedication to this vital cause. The Hayes family is proud to have her represent our foundation. "Thank you, Elijah," Serena said, stepping up to the microphone. Her voice was cultured, confident. "As someone who has been close to the Hayes family for many years, I'm honored to—" "Actually," Caleb's voice cut through the room as he reached the edge of the stage, "the Hayes family has not approved this foundation for this spokesperson." A murmur ran through the crowd. Cameras swiveled toward Caleb, and by extension toward Imani, whose hand he still held firmly in his. Elijah's smile froze on his face. "Caleb," he said, his voice tight, "how nice of you to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, my son, Caleb Hayes, Executive Vice President of Development." "Not anymore," Caleb said, his voice carrying clearly through the hushed room. He stepped onto the stage, bringing Imani with him despite her reluctance. "As of this moment, I am resigning from my position at Hayes Hotel Group." Gasps rippled through the audience. Elijah's face darkened with fury, though he maintained his smile for the cameras. "Perhaps we should discuss this in private, son." "No more private discussions," Caleb said firmly. "No more manipulation, no more control." He turned to face the reporters directly. "For those of you who don't know, this is Imani Rhodes, the woman your papers have been calling a gold digger and an opportunist." Imani felt dozens of eyes turn. To her, dozens of cameras pointing in her direction. She wanted to disappear, to run from the stage, but Caleb's grip on her hand kept her anchored. "The truth," Caleb continued, "is that Imani is the most genuine, caring person I've ever known. We met by chance when she accidentally sat at my table in a restaurant. She had no idea who I was, no idea I was a Hayes. She saw me for myself, not for my name or my money." Elijah stepped forward, his smile now clearly strained. "Caleb, this is hardly the time or place." "It's exactly the time and place," Caleb interrupted. "You called this press conference to humiliate Imani, to send a message that she's not good enough for the Hayes name. Well, let me be clear. It's the Hayes name that isn't good enough for her." Murmurs rippled through the crowd again. Serena Walsh had stepped back, her perfect composure finally cracking as she watched the scene unfold. "I am not my name," Caleb declared. "I am not my family's legacy. I am a man who has found something real in a world of facades and manipulations, and I won't let anyone, not the press, not my father, not anyone, take that away from me." He turned to Imani, his eyes filled with an emotion so raw and powerful it took her breath away. "I love you, Imani Rhodes. I've loved you since that first night at the restaurant. And I don't care who knows it." The words hit Imani like a physical force. Love. He loved her. In front of cameras, reporters, his father, his ex-girlfriend, He was declaring his love without reservation or fear. "Caleb," she whispered, too stunned to say more. But Caleb wasn't finished. He turned back to the crowd, his voice steady and clear. "The Hayes Foundation is a worthy cause. Children's health care is vitally important. But this announcement today was not made out of compassion or charity. It was made as a weapon to control me and to hurt the woman I love." Elijah Hayes stepped forward, his patience visibly at an end. "That's enough, Caleb. You've made your point." "No, Father, I haven't," Caleb replied, his voice hardening. "My point is this. I'm done. Done with your manipulation, done with your control, done with living my life by your rules. As of this moment, I am no longer part of the Hayes Hotel Group. I am no longer your puppet." A collective gasp went through the room. Even Imani found herself breathless at the magnitude of what Caleb was doing, publicly severing ties with his family's empire, throwing away his inheritance, his future, his security for her. "Caleb, think about what you're saying," Elijah warned, his voice low but intense. "Once you walk out that door, there's no coming back." Caleb looked at his father, something like pity in his eyes. "That's where you're wrong. There's always a way back if both sides want it. But right now, this is the path I'm choosing." He turned to Imani. "If you'll walk it with me." Imani stood frozen, aware of every eye in the room upon her, every camera capturing this moment. Caleb was offering her everything, his love, his future, his very identity. "But at what cost? You can't give up your family's company for me," she whispered. "It's your legacy, your birthright." "It's just a job," Caleb said simply. "Just a name. What I feel for you, that's real, that's worth fighting for." Imani looked from Caleb to Elijah, whose face was a mask of barely contained rage, to Serena Walsh, who watched the scene with a mixture of shock and what might have been grudging respect. Then she looked back at Caleb, at the man who had changed her life by simply seeing her, truly seeing her, across a restaurant table. "I love you too," she said, the words feeling right, true, inevitable. "And yes, I'll walk that path with you, wherever it leads." The room erupted in noise, reporters shouting questions, cameras clicking, guests murmuring in shock. But Imani heard none of it, as Caleb pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that spoke of promises, of futures, of love that defied expectations and differences. When they finally broke apart, Caleb took her hand and led her, down from the stage, through the crowd of reporters, and out the grand doors of the Hayes Hotel. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright, the city buzzing with its usual energy. "What now?" Imani asked, still dazed by all that had happened. Caleb smiled, that dimple appearing in his cheek. "Now we live our lives, together, on our own terms." "But what about your job? Your father? The company?" "My father will cool down eventually," Caleb said with more confidence than Imani felt. "And as for a job, I've been thinking about starting my own company for years. Something smaller, more personal than the Hayes empire. Boutique hotels that actually care about their guests as people, not profit centers. Can you do that, start over from scratch?" Caleb laughed, the sound free and genuine. "I'm not exactly starting from scratch. I have savings, investments, connections, and more importantly, I have you." His expression turned serious. "That is, if you're sure. This won't be easy, Imani. The press won't leave us alone overnight. My father won't give up without a fight. There will be challenges we can't even imagine yet." Imani took a deep breath, considering his words. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with obstacles and doubts. But the alternative, walking away from Caleb, from the love they'd found, seemed impossible now. "I'm sure," she said firmly. "We'll face those challenges together." Caleb's smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Together," he agreed, "just like we were always meant to be." As they walked hand in hand down the bustling street, Imani thought about the night she'd sat at the wrong table, a mistake that had led her not to the safe, predictable blind date her cousin had arranged, but to a man who saw her heart, who valued her for herself, who was willing to give up everything to build a life with her. Sometimes, she realized, the wrong table was exactly the right place to be. What neither of them noticed, As they walked away from the Hayes Hotel and toward their uncertain but hopeful future, was Elijah Hayes watching from the grand entrance, his expression unreadable as he observed his son's retreating back. Beside him stood Gregory Hampton, the PR director, looking flustered. "Sir, what do we do now? The press is in a frenzy. This could damage the Hayes brand significantly." Elijah didn't answer immediately, his eyes still fixed on Caleb and Imani. Something flickered across his face, regret, perhaps, or grudging admiration. "Sir?" Gregory prompted. Elijah finally turned, his jaw set in determination. "Get me everything. You can find on Imani roads, not the fabricated stories, the truth. I want to know exactly who this woman is that my son would throw away his birthright for. And the foundation announcement? Dr. Walsh, proceed as planned," Elijah said dismissively, "but make it clear that Caleb's outburst was a personal matter, not a reflection of the company's commitment to the foundation." As Gregory hurried away to do his bidding, Elijah turned back to the street, but Caleb and Imani had already disappeared into the crowd. "Do you think you've won, son?" he murmured to himself. "But this game is far from over." The week following Caleb's dramatic resignation from Hayes Hotel Group was a whirlwind of change. News outlets ran the story for days. The Hayes heir who had given up his billion-dollar birthright for love. Some painted it as a modern fairy tale. Others speculated it was merely a publicity stunt or temporary rebellion. Imani started her new job at Riverside Medical Center, determined to maintain normalcy despite the chaos. For the first few days, photographers lingered outside the building, hoping to catch a glimpse of the woman who brought down the Hayes empire, as one tabloid had dubbed her. "I'm so sorry about this," Imani told Rita, the office manager, after a particularly persistent reporter had tried to sneak in pretending to be a patient. Rita waved away her concern. "Not your fault, honey. Besides, our appointment bookings are up 30%. Seems everyone wants to come see the famous Imani Roads at work." Despite Rita's reassurances, Imani felt the weight of unwanted attention every time she entered or left the building. Caleb had insisted on having a security team drive her to and from work, which only added to her discomfort. This wasn't the life she had envisioned for herself, surrounded by bodyguards, scrutinized by strangers. Meanwhile, Caleb had thrown himself into planning his new venture, a boutique hotel concept focused on personalized service and community integration. "I'm thinking of starting with just one property," he explained one evening as they sat in his penthouse, takeout containers spread across the coffee table. "Something small but exceptional. A place where guests feel like they're staying with family, not just checking into a room." "It sounds wonderful," Imani said, watching his face light up as he described his vision. "But can you really start from scratch? Won't your father try to block you?" Caleb's expression turned serious. "He's already trying. He's called in favors with banks, investors, even real estate agents, making it clear that anyone who works with me is choosing sides in a Hayes family war." "That's terrible," Imani said, anger rising at Elijah's vindictiveness. "He'd rather see you fail than succeed on your own terms." "He's convinced I'll come crawling back when the money runs out," Caleb said with a bitter laugh. "What he doesn't understand is that I never cared about the money. I cared about building something meaningful, and now I care about building a life with you." He reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "How are things at the medical center?" "Still being hounded by reporters," Imani sighed. "It's getting better. Only one showed up today, but the patients, some of them look at me differently now, like I'm an attraction instead of a person." "I'm sorry," Caleb said, guilt clouding his features. "This is exactly what I was afraid would happen." "It's not your fault," Imani assured him. "Your father is the one who dragged us into the spotlight, and besides, it will die down eventually, won't it?" The uncertainty in her voice made Caleb squeeze her hand tighter. "It will. People have short attention spans. Some new scandal will come along, and we'll be yesterday's news." Imani tried to believe him, but as days turned into weeks, the media attention showed little sign of abating. If anything, it intensified when a financial news outlet reported that Caleb's departure had caused Hayes Hotel Group stock to drop 12%. "Your father must be furious," Imani said. when Caleb showed her the article. Livid, Caleb confirmed. Vanessa says he's been in closed-door meetings with the board all week, trying to reassure investors. Have you spoken to him at all? Caleb shook his head. Not since the press conference. He's had his lawyers contact mine about my shares in the company and other assets, but we haven't spoken directly. The strain was evident in Caleb's voice. Despite the pain his father had caused, Imani knew Caleb was hurting from the estrangement. Family was family, even when they disappointed. Maybe you should reach out, she suggested gently. Not to reconcile professionally, but just as father and son. Caleb's jaw tightened. After what he did to you, the lies he spread, the way he tried to humiliate you publicly? No, I can't forgive that. You don't have to forgive him, Imani said, but he's still your father, your only family. You're my family now, Caleb said firmly. You and whatever future we build together. The conviction in his voice warmed Imani's heart, even as it worried her. She didn't want to be the reason Caleb lost his family, no matter how difficult that family might be. A month after Caleb's resignation, Imani came home from work to find a sleek black car parked outside her apartment building. Her heart sank, assuming it was yet another reporter. But as she approached, the back door opened and Elijah Hayes stepped out. Imani froze, her body tensing. Mr. Hayes. Ms. Rhodes, Elijah replied, his tone carefully neutral. Might I have a word? She glanced around, half expecting to see cameras or Caleb's security team. Does Caleb know you're here? No, Elijah admitted, and I'd prefer to keep it that way, at least for now. Every instinct told Imani to refuse, to walk past him and into her building. But curiosity and a faint hope that perhaps Elijah had come to make peace made her pause. 5 minutes, she said finally. There's a coffee shop around the corner. Elijah nodded, falling into step beside her. They walked in silence, Imani acutely aware of the powerful man next to her, the man who had tried to destroy her reputation, who had driven his own son to publicly renounce his birthright. The coffee shop was nearly empty at this hour. They found a table in the back corner, away from the few other patrons. Elijah ordered an espresso. Imani asked for tea, needing something to occupy her hands. I'll be direct, Ms. Rhodes, Elijah said once the server had left. I've had you investigated. Imani felt a chill run down her spine. Investigated? Your childhood moving between relatives after your parents' accident, your grandmother's influence, your work ethic, putting yourself through community college, your perfect record as an employee at every job you've held. Elijah recited these details of her life as if reading from a dossier. Even your volunteer. Work at the senior center where your grandmother spent her final months. Anger replaced Imani's initial fear. You had no right to dig into my private life. I had every right, Elijah countered. My son threw away his future for you. I needed to understand why. And did your investigation give you the answer? Imani asked coldly. Elijah studied her, his expression unreadable. Partially, you are. By all accounts, exactly what you appear to be. Hard-working, loyal, honest, not the gold digger I initially assumed. How generous of you to acknowledge that, Imani said, unable to keep the sarcasm from her voice. To her surprise, Elijah's mouth quirked in what might have been the ghost of a smile. You have spirit. I can see why Caleb is drawn to that. The server returned with their drinks. Imani wrapped her hands around the warm mug, gathering her thoughts. Why are you here, Mr. Hayes? To tell me you approve of me now? It's a little late. For that, I'm here to make you an offer, Elijah said, his voice dropping lower. $1 million, cash, tax-free, in exchange for ending your relationship with my son. Imani nearly spilled her tea. Excuse me? $2 million then, Elijah amended, misinterpreting her shock as negotiation. A life-changing amount for someone like you. Enough to buy a house, start a business, secure your future. Imani set down her mug carefully, afraid she might throw it at him otherwise. Someone like me? Someone who has struggled financially. Their entire life, Elijah clarified. Don't misunderstand me, Ms. Rhodes. This isn't about your character anymore. It's about what's best for Caleb. And you think what's best for him is to be apart from someone he loves, someone who loves him for himself, not his money or his name? Elijah leaned forward, his voice intense. What's best for him is to return to his rightful place at Hayes Hotel Group, to fulfill the destiny he's been prepared for his entire life. He thinks he wants freedom now, but in time, he'll realize what he's lost. And you think I'm the only thing keeping him from returning? Imani asked incredulously. I think, Elijah said carefully, that he's infatuated with what you represent. Authenticity, simplicity, freedom from expectation. But infatuation fades, Ms. Rhodes, and when it does, he'll be left with the consequences of choices made in haste. If you really believe that, Imani countered, then you should just wait. According to you, Caleb will tire of me eventually and come crawling back to you and the company. Perhaps, Elijah conceded, but why suffer through the intervening months or years? Why watch my son struggle to build something from nothing when his birthright awaits him? Because it's his choice, Imani said firmly. His life, not yours to control. Elijah's expression hardened. 3 million. Final offer. Enough money that you'd never have to work again. Imani stood, her tea untouched. Mr. Hayes, I don't want your money. I never did. What I want is for Caleb to be happy, to be valued for who he is, not what name he bears or what company he runs. She leaned down, meeting his cold gaze directly. And if you truly loved your son, that's what you would want to. Without waiting for his response, she turned and walked out of the coffee shop, her heart pounding but her resolve steady. Behind her, she heard Elijah call her name once, but she didn't look back. Only when she was safely inside her apartment did she allow herself to shake, the full weight of the confrontation hitting her. Elijah Hayes had offered her $3 million to walk away from Caleb. $3 million, a sum so vast she couldn't even imagine it, and she had turned it down without hesitation, because no amount of money could replace what she had found with Caleb, a love built on genuine connection, on being seen and valued for exactly who she was. Her phone rang, displaying Caleb's name. For a moment, she considered telling him about his father's visit, his outrageous offer. But something held her back. This was between her and Elijah, a test she had passed, a choice she had made. Telling Caleb would only deepen the rift between father and son. Hi, she answered, forcing brightness into her voice. Hey, beautiful, Caleb replied, the warmth in his tone instantly soothing her frayed nerves. How was work today? Good, Imani said, making a split-second decision to keep Elijah's visit to herself, at least for now. Busy, but good. How about you? Any progress on the hotel plans? Actually, yes, Caleb said, excitement evident in his voice. I found a potential property, an old brownstone in the West Village. It needs work, but it has character, history. I'd love to show it to you this weekend. I'd love to see it, Imani said, genuinely interested, despite the lingering tension from her encounter with Elijah. Great. I'll pick you up Saturday morning. And Imani, I love you. The simple declaration, offered so freely, made tears spring to Imani's eyes. I love you too, she whispered. After hanging up, Imani sat on her sofa, thinking about the stark contrast between father and son. Elijah, calculating and cold, seeing relationships as transactions. Caleb, warm and genuine, giving his heart freely and completely. She hoped for Caleb's sake that someday the two men might find common ground, but in the meantime, she would stand firm in her choice, choosing love over money, authenticity over advantage. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. Caleb arrived at Imani's apartment with coffee and pastries, his excitement palpable as he described the property they were going to see. It was built in 1890, originally as a private residence for a shipping merchant, he explained as they drove downtown. Later it was divided into apartments, then briefly used as an art gallery. It needs updating, but the bones are solid. How many rooms would it have as a hotel? Imani asked, caught up in his enthusiasm. Only 12, Caleb admitted. Like I said, it's small, but each room would be unique. with original architectural features and custom furnishings. An intimate experience, not a cookie-cutter corporate stay. The brownstone was even more beautiful than Caleb had described. 4 stories of weathered brick with ornate cornices and large windows. Inside, original woodwork and high ceilings created a sense of old-world elegance despite the peeling wallpaper and worn floors. "What do you think?" Caleb asked, watching Imani as she explored the spacious front parlor. "It's amazing," she said honestly. "I can see why you're excited about it. The location is perfect too, quiet street but close to restaurants and shopping." "I think so too," Caleb agreed, his eyes bright. "But there's a problem. The owner is being pressured not to sell to me." Imani's heart sank, knowing immediately who was behind the pressure. "Your father," Caleb nodded grimly. "He's offered above asking price, through a shell company. The real estate agent let it slip. He doesn't even want the property. He just doesn't want me to have it." "That's petty," Imani said, anger rising on Caleb's behalf. "That's my father," Caleb sighed. "But I'm not giving up. I've got a meeting with the owner next week. I'm hoping I can convince him that my plans for the building will honor its history, not just maximize profit." Imani squeezed his hand supportively. "If anyone can persuade him, it's you. Your passion for this place is obvious." They spent another hour exploring the brownstone, with Caleb pointing out where guest rooms would be located, where they could create a cozy breakfast area, how the rooftop could become a garden terrace. His vision was so clear, so compelling, that Imani could almost see the finished hotel. "There's something else I wanted to talk to you about," Caleb said, as they stood on the potential rooftop garden, the city spread out around them. "About us." Something in his tone made Imani's pulse quicken. "What about us?" "These past months have been challenging," Caleb began, taking both her hands in his. "The media attention, my father's interference, starting over professionally, it's a lot to deal with. And through it all, you've been my anchor, my constant, the one person who sees me for who I really am." "Caleb," Imani said softly, emotion welling in her chest. "Let me finish," he said with a gentle smile. "I've been thinking about what matters in life. Not money or status or family names. What matters is having someone to share your dreams with. Someone who makes you want to be better. Someone who feels like home." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Imani's breath caught as he dropped to one knee. "Imani Rhodes," Caleb said, his voice steady despite the emotion shining in his eyes. "You sat at the wrong table that night, but it turned out to be the right place for both of us. I love you, your strength, your kindness, your honesty. Will you marry me?" He opened the box to reveal a ring unlike any Imani had imagined, not a massive diamond meant to showcase wealth, but a delicate vintage piece with a modest central stone, surrounded by smaller ones set in warm gold. "It was my grandmother's," Caleb explained. "My mother's mother. She was a lot like you, strong, independent, unwilling to be defined by her husband's name or fortune. I think she would have wanted you to have it." Tears blurred Imani's vision as she looked from the ring to Caleb's hopeful face. This man who had given up everything for her was now offering her his heart, his future, his life. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, Caleb, I'll marry you." His smile was radiant as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. Caleb rose to his feet and pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that held all the promise of their future together. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and smiling, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. "I was thinking a small wedding, just close friends and family, something simple and real like us." "That sounds perfect," Imani agreed, "though I'm not sure your father will want to attend." A shadow crossed Caleb's face. "Probably not, but I'll invite him anyway. It's the right thing to do." Imani hesitated, then decided it was time to tell him about Elijah's visit. "Caleb, there's something you should know. Your father came to see me a few days ago." Caleb stiffened. "What? Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to upset you," Imani explained, "and I handled it. But he offered me money to leave you. $3 million. Fury darkened Caleb's expression. "That bastard, No," Imani interrupted. placing a calming hand on his chest. "I've already dealt with it. I turned him down, obviously. But Caleb, I think in his own twisted way, he believes he's protecting you." "By trying to buy off the woman I love?" Caleb scoffed. "By trying to bring you back to the life he thinks you're meant for," Imani corrected gently. "He's wrong, and his methods are terrible, but I don't think it comes from a place of malice, just control." Caleb shook his head, amazed. "How can you be so understanding after what he did to you? The lies, the manipulation, and now this." Imani smiled sadly. "Because I can see how much his rejection hurts you, even though you try to hide it. And because I know what it's like to lose family. If there's any chance of reconciliation between you two, I don't want to be the one standing in the way." Caleb's expression softened as he pulled her close again. "You are remarkable, Imani Rhodes. Soon to Imani Hayes, if you want to take my name, that is." "Let's discuss that later," Imani laughed, "one step at a time." As they left the brownstone, hand in hand, and hearts full of plans for the future, neither noticed the black car parked across the street or the distinguished silver-haired man watching them from behind tinted windows. Elijah Hayes observed his son's joyful expression, the tender way he helped Imani into the passenger seat, the quick kiss they shared before Caleb walked around to the driver's side. Something shifted in the older man's chest, a recognition, perhaps, of the genuine happiness emanating from the couple. "Where to now, sir?" his driver asked. Elijah hesitated, then said, "The office, and call Gregory. Tell him I need to speak with Marcus Wilson." "The owner of the brownstone?" the driver clarified. "Yes," Elijah confirmed, his decision made. "I'm withdrawing our counteroffer." 2 weeks later, Caleb received a call that left him stunned. Marcus Wilson, the brownstone's owner, had accepted his offer, at a price significantly below what Elijah had supposedly bid. "I don't understand," Caleb told Imani that night as they celebrated with champagne in his penthouse. "My father never backs down from a fight. Why would he withdraw his offer?" Imani shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. "Maybe he had a change of heart." "My father doesn't have a heart," Caleb said, but there was less bitterness in his tone than usual. "Everyone has a heart, Caleb," Imani countered. "Some are just better hidden than others." The next morning, a courier delivered a package to Caleb's penthouse. Inside was a set of blueprints, original architectural drawings of the brownstone, from 1890. A note was attached, written in Elijah's distinctive hand. "Caleb, these might be useful in your restoration efforts. They were filed away in our family archives. Your great-grandfather apparently knew the original owner. Congratulations on acquiring the property. I look forward to seeing what you make of it." "Father, no." Apology. No direct acknowledgement of his interference or his change of heart, but it was something, a small olive branch extended across the chasm that had grown between them. "Are you going to call him?" Imani asked, reading the note over Caleb's shoulder. Caleb stared at his father's handwriting, emotions warring on his face. "Not yet," he said finally. "But maybe I'll invite him to the opening. When the hotel is ready." Imani squeezed his hand, understanding the significance of this small concession. "One step at a time," she said softly. The next 6 months passed in a whirlwind of activity. Caleb threw himself into renovating the brownstone, transforming it into the Rhodes House, a name he had chosen to honor Imani and her family's legacy of warmth and hospitality. Imani continued working at the medical center, where the initial curiosity about her relationship with Caleb had gradually given way to respect for her competence and compassion. She had even been promoted to office manager when Rita retired. Their engagement had caused another brief flurry of media attention, but as Caleb had predicted, new scandals eventually drew the spotlight elsewhere. They were able to move about the city with increasing freedom, planning their wedding and their future without constant scrutiny. The Rhodes House was scheduled to open in October, a date chosen to coincide with what would have been Imani's grandmother's birthday. As the big day approached, Caleb surprised Imani by suggesting they visit the completed hotel the night before the official opening. "Just us," he said. "Before the critics and the guests and the industry people arrive, I want you to see it first, to feel what we've created. The transformation of the brownstone was nothing short of magical. Original woodwork had been lovingly restored, modern amenities seamlessly integrated into the historic structure. Each guest room had its own character, its own story, many featuring artifacts and art from local creators. "It's beautiful, Caleb," Imani said as they toured the finished spaces. "More than beautiful, it's warm, welcoming, like a real home." "That was the goal," Caleb said, pride evident in his voice. "Not just a place to stay, but a place to belong, even if just for a night or two." They ended their tour on the rooftop garden, now a lush oasis of greenery, with comfortable seating areas and unobstructed views of the city skyline. A small table had been set with dinner for two, candles flickering in the evening breeze. "You planned this?" Imani accused with a smile as Caleb pulled out her chair. "Guilty," he admitted. "I wanted our last night before the grand opening to be special. Just us, celebrating what we've built together." "What you've built," Imani corrected. "This is your vision, Caleb." "Inspired by you," he countered, pouring champagne into 2 glasses. "By your warmth, your genuineness, your ability to make anyone feel at home. The Rhodes House isn't just named after you, Imani. It's infused with your spirit." They toasted to the hotel's success, to their upcoming wedding, now just a month away, and to the journey that had brought them together. "I've been thinking," Caleb said as they finished their meal, "about my father." Imani set down her fork, giving him her full attention. "And?" "I sent him an invitation to the opening tomorrow. A personal one, not through his assistant. I don't know if he'll come, but—" Caleb trailed off, uncertainty in his eyes. "But you hope he will," Imani finished for him. Caleb nodded. "Is that foolish? After everything he did?" "It's not foolish," Imani assured him. "It's human. He's your father, Caleb. Despite everything, that bond matters. And if he does come, can you forgive him for how he treated you?" Imani considered the question carefully. "I think forgiveness is a process, not a moment. We start by opening the door to possibility. The rest, well, that takes time and effort from both sides." Caleb reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "How did I get so lucky? Sitting at the wrong table, finding the right heart?" Imani smiled, the memory of that night still vivid. "Maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe it was exactly where we were both meant to be." The grand opening of the Rhodes House was a resounding success. Travel writers, hotel critics, and local dignitaries filled the elegant lobby, sipping champagne and touring the meticulously designed spaces. Nia had come, of course, along with colleagues from the medical center and friends who had supported them through the tumultuous past months. Caleb moved through the crowd with easy charm, answering questions about his vision for the property and his plans for potential future locations, but his eyes frequently scanned the entrance, looking for one particular guest who had yet to arrive. "He might not come," Imani said gently, appearing at his side with a fresh glass of champagne. "And that's okay," Caleb sighed, accepting the glass. "I know, I just thought—" After the blueprints, he trailed off as the front door opened once more and Elijah Hayes stepped into the lobby. The older man was impeccably dressed as always, his expression guarded as he surveyed the crowded room. A hush fell over the nearest guests as they recognized the Hayes patriarch. Everyone knew the story of the rift between father and son, the public resignation, the competing business ventures. This moment, Elijah entering his son's new establishment, was loaded with significance. Caleb straightened, his grip on Imani's hand tightening slightly. "He came," he whispered, disbelief and hope mingling in his voice. "Go," Imani urged. "Talk to him." Caleb hesitated. "Come with me?" Imani shook her head. "This is between you two. I'll be right here if you need me." With a deep breath, Caleb crossed the room to where his father stood. Imani couldn't hear their exchange over the buzz of conversation that had resumed, but she could see the stiff formality in both men's postures, the careful distance they maintained. Then, something shifted. Elijah gestured around the room, saying something that made Caleb's expression open in surprise. Caleb responded, his hands animated as he described some aspect of the hotel. Elijah nodded, his usual stern expression softening almost imperceptibly. Conversation continued for several minutes, gradually becoming less formal, more genuine. Finally, Caleb gestured toward Imani, clearly inviting his father to join them. As Elijah approached, Imani steeled herself, unsure what to expect from the man who had tried to buy her off, who had spread lies about her, who had attempted to sabotage their happiness at every turn. "Ms. Rhodes," Elijah greeted her, his tone carefully neutral. "Congratulations on the hotel. It's not what I expected." "In a good way, I hope," Imani replied, equally careful. "Indeed." Elijah glanced around the lobby once more. "It has character. Authenticity. Qualities that are increasingly rare in this industry." "That was the goal," Caleb said, pride evident in his voice. "Something genuine in a world of corporate sameness." Elijah's gaze returned to Imani, assessing her with those calculating eyes that so resembled his son's in color, but lacked their warmth. "I understand congratulations are in order for your engagement as well." "Thank you," Imani said, instinctively moving closer to Caleb, who wrapped an arm around her waist. "The wedding is next month," Caleb added. "Small ceremony, just close friends and family." He hesitated, then added, "We'd like you to be there, Father, if you want to be." Something flickered across Elijah's face, surprise, perhaps even emotion. "I would like that," he said finally. It wasn't an apology, it wasn't a declaration of acceptance or approval, but it was a beginning, a small crack in the wall that had stood between father and son. As the evening progressed, Imani watched. Caleb and Elijah continued to navigate their fragile new dynamic. There were awkward moments, brief tensions, but also glimpses of connection that hadn't existed before. "I think he's actually impressed," Caleb whispered to Imani as they watched Elijah examining the original woodwork in the library. "He hasn't said it outright, but I can tell." "Of course he's impressed," Imani said confidently. "What you've created here is special, Caleb. Anyone can see that." As the event wound down and the last guests departed, Elijah approached them once more. "I should be going," he said formally. "Thank you for the invitation, Caleb. The hotel is a worthy achievement." Coming from Elijah Hayes, it was high praise indeed. "Thank you for coming," Caleb replied, extending his hand. Elijah shook it. Then, after a moment's hesitation, pulled his son into a brief, awkward embrace. Over Caleb's shoulder, his eyes met Imani's. "Take care of him," he said quietly, a request rather than a command. "I will," Imani promised, "always," with a final nod. Elijah departed, leaving Caleb staring after him with a mixture of hope and caution. "Do you think he meant it?" Caleb asked once his father had gone. "About coming to the wedding?" "I think he's trying," Imani said honestly, "and that's a start." Later that night, as they stood alone in the empty lobby of the Rhodes house, Imani looked around at what they had created together. Not just a hotel, but a symbol of their journey from strangers at a restaurant table to partners in life and love. "What are you thinking?" Caleb asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "I'm thinking about that night at Bellini's," Imani said, leaning back against his chest. "How one small mistake changed everything." "Best mistake ever made," Caleb murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. Imani turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had chosen her over fortune and family name, who had seen her value when others saw only her circumstances. "I love you." "Caleb Hayes," she said simply. "And I love you, Imani Rhodes," he replied. "Soon to be Imani Hayes, if you decide to take my name, that is." Imani smiled, touching the vintage ring that sparkled on her finger. "I think I will. Not because it's the Hayes name, with all its history and prestige, but because it's your name, and I want to share it with you." Caleb's eyes shone with emotion as he pulled her closer. "Then let's make it a name worth sharing, something built on love and honesty, not power and control." "We already have," Imani said, gesturing to the beautiful space around them. "This is just the beginning." As they stood together in the quiet hotel lobby, surrounded by the fruits of their shared vision, Imani thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment, from a case of mistaken identity to a love strong enough to withstand public scrutiny, family opposition, and the vast differences in their backgrounds. They had found each other by accident, the wrong table on the right night. But what they had built together was no accident at all. It was a choice made every day to see each other clearly, to value what was genuine, to believe that love could bridge even the widest gaps. And as Caleb's lips found hers in a kiss that held all the promise of their future together, Imani knew with absolute certainty that she had found where she truly belonged. Not in a place or a social circle or even a name, but in the heart of a man who had looked past every superficial difference to see the person she truly was. Sometimes, she reflected as they walked hand in hand through their hotel toward the future they would build together, the wrong table turns out to be exactly the right place to be. The end.